Connor sat comfortably on his couch, the soft glow of the TV flickering in the dim room. It had been a long day, and he relished the silence of the evening. His wife, Lucy, had always been the social one, the heart of the house. But now, after her passing, the quiet settled like a weight. He'd grown used to it, maybe even found some solace in it. As the flickering images of a late-night crime drama danced across the screen, Connor absent-mindedly adjusted his reading glasses. He never liked wearing them, but they had become a necessary part of his evenings. He stared at the TV, half watching, half lost in thought, when something made the hairs on the back of his neck prickle. The air felt different. He couldn't pinpoint it, just a subtle shift. A heaviness. Connor frowned, trying to dismiss the feeling as a trick of exhaustion. He turned slightly to glance around the room, but nothing seemed amiss. The familiar clutter, the coffee table, the stack of magazines, everything was in its place. But then he felt it again. A presence. Slowly, he turned his head toward the corner of the room behind him. It was just a shadow at first, indistinct and formless. Then, as his eyes focused, it began to take shape. A dark figure emerged from the dimness, tall and imposing. The air around it felt colder, unnatural, as if it were not part of the world he knew. The figure was humanoid in shape but distorted, twisted, with long, jagged horns protruding from its head. Connor's heart raced. He knew what he was seeing wasn't real, couldn't be, but the fear gripping him was undeniable. The shadow seemed to stretch and grow, its outline sharpening until it loomed just behind him. The horns seemed to glisten in the faint light, like sharp metal ready to pierce the night. Connor's breath caught in his throat. He wanted to move, to turn around, to scream, but his body refused to obey. The figure stood silently, watching him, its presence suffocating. He could feel the weight of its gaze, cold and malevolent. His pulse thundered in his ears, drowning out everything else. It felt like hours, but the seconds dragged on in torturous slowness. Finally, with a shaky breath, Connor managed to snap his gaze away from the shadow. He stood, trembling, and turned on the light. When the room flooded with brightness, the shadow was gone. The oppressive atmosphere lifted. But the fear lingered. The silence was no longer comforting. Connor wasn't sure if what he had seen had been real or some trick of his mind, but the feeling of being watched never left him that night.